So, what is adult ADHD and why are so many women finding out now that they have it? Well, ADHD has existed in your lifetime. We just didn't have awareness of it. So, ADHD isn't something that we outgrow. ADHD is something that's been there, and we now have more understanding of what that looks like. Also, as we age, some of the symptoms of ADHD may change. For instance, a hyperactive little boy who is constantly swirling around in school may be the adult who is constantly going from activity to activity to activity. And we're just, again, becoming aware that ADHD impacts roughly 6% of the population, and 80% of people who have it still don't know they do. Also, we all believed that ADHD was just that hyperactive little boy. And I remember even for myself, when my ex-husband said to me, "You have ADHD," I was like, "No, I don't. I had a hyperactive brother who had to be put on Ritalin in the 1980s to be in the classroom." And I'm like, "I don't have ADHD. That's ADHD." And now we're realizing that ADHD isn't just about a disorder or hyperactivity of our bodies. It can be an inattentive brain that just doesn't stop and is hyperactive. And I do believe we're going to change the word attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. There's a lot of people who are discussing that it really doesn't truly embody what it means to have ADHD, because the reality is we have an abundance of attention if we're interested in something. The problem is if we don't like boredom. So if there's something that bores us, we're gonna fidget, we're gonna twirl our hair. The other thing that I know is that a lot of people cope with ADHD with substances, and actually there's a high incidence of smoking, which is actually like a natural nicotine. And that's why for me and my family, we're realizing that my grandmother likely had ADHD too, but she was a smoker and that would have masked those symptoms. I think it's important for us to recognize what ADHD might look like in girls or what it might have looked like for you. I want to say that it's really important to know that if you meet one person with ADHD, you've met one person with ADHD. We all express differently, but I would say for a girl, you might see perfectionism, because there's so much fear that you're going to forget something, or you're so concerned about being judged that you're almost so anxious about having everything be or appear perfect. So while your classmates might write their notes one time, you might have written them 5 times. We tend to zone out, we tend to doodle, we tend to twirl our hair. We might have been the girls who were blurting out answers or couldn't be quiet. And yeah, and also very, very sensitive. We're realizing now that ADHD, we have a hard time with emotional regulation. So it could be that person that is extra sensitive, but you may not be aware of it. And when boys, and this is true of how boys versus girls typically present, a boy will express emotion as anger, where a girl, it will show up as anxiety and depression, and got an internal struggle going on, but you may not be aware of it. And again, we tend to be really bright, and so we're able to compensate with that with our intelligence, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're not suffering in silence. In fact, 75% of people who have ADHD were not identified as children.